Okay, now we're ready to install the truss rod. Now we'll have, that's the barrel stop. And you'll need to drill a hole underneath the nut so that you can punch that through to the headstock. It'll just be the size of the actual rod that you picked. Go ahead and install your washer and the adjustment nut. And leave yourself a little room here to adjust it later on. And now I'm just going to mark where the stop needs to go. And now I'm going to put this in a vise and take a small hacksaw and cut off the excess. Now that that's cut off, leave the remainder in the vise, and we're going to use the die that you should have bought with your truss rod, and we're going to thread this end for the stop to go on. Now, I'm just using a little bit of lubricating oil. Just a few drops here on the end. And I'm just going to carefully start this by hand. It'll be a little difficult to turn. But once you get the thread started, then you want to take a wrench and start cutting the threads. And now once you get to sort of the end of the die, when the rod starts to sort of poke out the other side, you'll know that you're far enough. You don't want to go too far because you'll mess up the starter threads. And you really only need a 1/4 inch or so, maybe 7 or 8 millimeters. And here you can see you've got your threaded end. Now you want to put your stop end piece on here. And when you have it on, once you have this on in place, hit it with a hammer to bend it just slightly so that it can't become unscrewed. Now before we put it in, I'm going to take a little scrap piece of wood and some sandpaper, and I'm going to sand out the channel that the truss rod goes in. Just smooth it out some. And now we've hit that with the hammer. We're going to go ahead and slide it in the top. Put the washer and the adjusting nut back on. And then slide the stop into place. Okay, now I'm going to take one of the scrap pieces from the side of the neck, and we're going to make a little fillet that'll sit on top and cover up the truss rod. I'm just going to get a finished measurement on how wide the channel is. Then I'm just going to mark this out here. As long as it's a little thicker than the channel, the thickness is a little irrelevant. We're going to cut it to fit once it's installed. Now you'll see we're going to need to sand and plane this to fit. Here I'm just taking a hand plane and scraping it down to size. Okay, now you can see that we've got our fit pretty much made. I'm just going to mark where the end of the channel is and cut that off. And now I'm going to lay out the sections like we used to drill the holes for the channel. And this way I'm going to mimic that curve in this piece of wood here. Just measuring the ends and the depth at those points so that I can then just draw that curve in. Then I'm just going to take a plane and plane down to that line and put the curve in the wood so it can sit on top of the truss rod. Now you've got both sides curved. Now I'm just going to sand the whole piece so that it's ready to install. Now here you can see how that curve is going to sit on top and push that same curve into the truss rod. Once it's ready, go ahead and apply a little glue to the sides. Be sure don't glue the bottom. You don't need to glue the wood to the truss rod. Just keep it on the sides itself. Now I'm just going to wipe this out and take off any excess and just push it right into place. Now I'm just going to hammer it down with the mallet to make sure that it fits and that we've got the truss rod in the proper shape. And then I'm just going to put a few C-clamps on here and hold it in place. And notice that it doesn't go all the way in. It's not designed to. It was well thicker so that we can cut it later. Okay, now that it's dried, we're going to take the flush cut saw